Hi there. We're so glad you're here. Because before we get into the show, we've got some exciting announcements. Our book, Whatever the Hell You Want, An Escape Plan to Break Out of Life's Little Boxes and Live Free from Expectations, will be released on October 8th. But did you know you can pre-order it now?
That's right. And we have bonuses for you if you pre-order. Our fabulous podcast listeners can win the new AirPods Max headphones. With these super cool headphones, our podcast will sound even better. You can get more details at the end of this episode and in the show notes. So let's get to it.
If you examine the schedules of some of the most accomplished, innovative, world-changing people in history, you will discover that they did maybe 3 to 4 hours of work each day, because that's how much the brain can do. And when they got to the point where they were pushing themselves too far, they got up and walked away. Now, do we do that today? No, we're like, buckle down, jerk, rise and grind.
Celeste Headlee wants to start a revolution. She's the award-winning author of Do Nothing: How to Break Away from Overworking, Overdoing, and Underliving. It's a book that asks why we're so obsessed with productivity and efficiency when it's making us miserable and unhealthy.
People who overwork, which means work more than 55 hours a week, which is most Americans, will die younger. Not that it's correlated with early death. It causes it. You know, this is serious.
Celeste is a broadcast journalist with NPR and PBS, and she's also a professional speaker. With over 30 million views, her TED Talk is one of the 10 most watched talks on TED's homepage, and it's easy to see why. This amazing woman does not mince words, and in this episode, she explains our toxic relationship with work, how we got here, and what we can do about it. You know Kelly and I loved every minute of this interview, and so will you. Welcome to The Breakout, a show about smashing through life's little boxes and forging your own path. I'm Dr. Carrie Ulrich.
And I'm Kelly Gunther. Carrie and I are people and change experts, best friends, and business partners. We've spent more than 25 years helping employees and leaders change. With love and a lot of laughs, we're here to empower you to live life on your terms. Our methods may seem a bit unconventional, but trust us, they will change your life.
Let's be real for a second. We know change can sometimes be scary. Heck, it even scares us. But staying the same can be even scarier. On The Breakout, we prove that you can escape expectations, and best of all, we show you how. Oh, Celeste, we're so excited that you're here. I feel like I already know you because I'm one of the, what is it now, up to 36 million, Celeste, who have seen your
38,
TED
maybe.
Talk?
Yeah.
38. Who's counting? It is almost how many people listen to this podcast on a daily basis. So you're so close. We're so close in numbers, Celeste.
That's fair.
So Celeste, what do you break out of? And your book, Do Nothing, what does it encourage others to break out of?
What do I break out of? A lot. I interrogate everything, why we do stuff. I don't like just doing what we've always done. And then the book, Do Nothing, that you're talking about, which came out in 2020, straight into the pandemic, by the way, has a continued life. Like it's in some weeks selling more now than it was when it first came out, which is a surprise to me, kind of a surprise to me. So I hoped to start a revolution with Do Nothing, and I think it's still possible.
I love anyone who wants to start any type of revolution. Well, not any type. Let's be clear. The right side history revolutions. And we do have so much that we could talk to you about, but we are going to focus on this book that came out in 2020, Do Nothing. What are your thoughts on why it's still so popular and still part of the zeitgeist?
I think people are overworked and tired, and work-life balance has been out of control. I think a lot of people first really realized that during the pandemic when so many were stuck at home and realized there was nothing at home that wasn't connected to work. In previous generations, my grandparents did jigsaw puzzles and collected stamps and had a rock polisher, and they had all this stuff to do around the house. And the reason why you saw so many people suddenly take up balcony gardens and bread making is because they didn't have anything at home that wasn't connected to their work. And so I think it's been a real revelation to people. The other thing is generationally in society, we have been leaning into this very toxic relationship with work for so long now that it is finally reaching the breaking point. We're simply at the unsustainable point. So we either have to change the way we do things or break.
Or break.
Yeah, or break. And that is happening to a lot of people.
Yeah. And our podcast is called The Breakout, but we want people to not break, Celeste. We want them to break out of. And so I think your book challenges those assumptions. The more you work, the better you are. And that infected you, even when you were a kid. Maybe tell us about your relationship with this hard work ethic.
Yeah, I come from Jewish immigrants on one side and formerly enslaved people on the other. We've always thought we could work our way up and out. That was never true. But when I was 12 years old, I had a day runner. Do you remember those? They looked like books.
Of course.
I asked for that for my birthday. I looked ridiculous, but it was full of all kinds of schedules and guides and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I used to say in job interviews that I may not be the most qualified candidate, but I can outwork anybody. So this has been a lifelong pursuit for me to find the most efficient way to do everything, to be the most productive. And I reached the breaking point. And, I want to be clear here that I'm not speaking apocryphally. When I talk about the breaking point, we just had a massive study from the WHO involving multiple countries and tens of thousands of people in which they discovered that people who overwork, which means work more than 55 hours a week, which is most Americans, will die younger. Not that it's correlated with early death. It causes it. This is serious. And it's one of the reasons, going back to why this book is popular, is because this book is not telling you to get a cabin and make all of your own vanilla extract and everything yourself. And it's not telling you to suddenly take up Zen meditation or anything like that. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to figure out why we are where we are. And that's a bigger problem than just taking a vacation, right? And it also means that part of the reason we are where we are is exactly the reaction we got from the corporate community when people began to establish boundaries for themselves, and they were trying to shame everyone by calling it quiet quitting, right? Somebody's trying to work only the hours they're paid for, and you're calling it quiet quitting?
Yes.
No, that's called healthy boundaries. So this shame that we are all subjected to is, I think, part of the reason why people also come to the book, because I'm going to help you let go of all that shame. The guilt you feel if you're sitting there watching a movie and not also checking your email, I'm going to help you let that go.
I love that. Let that go. And what happened to you personally in about 2017? You hit your wall and you said that was a turning point. What happened?
My TED Talk went super viral. I started being asked to give speaking engagements all over the place. I still had a full-time job, right? But my schedule became absolutely insane. Like the fact that I thought that was doable or rational is nutballs. I was hosting a full-time radio show, which is a lot of work. And I would get done with my radio show at 10 o'clock in the morning, hustle over to the airport. I've brought my luggage with me, fly to whatever destination I was going to, get up the next morning, or either give the speech that night or give the speech the next morning, get back on a plane, fly in, land sometime around 11:30 or midnight or 1, and then get up and go back to the radio stations that I would only have missed one day of work. And not surprisingly, I crashed. I started getting really, really sick. Sick, which just doesn't usually happen to me. And so, I didn't start Do Nothing as a book. I started it as a coping mix. I was trying to figure out what was going wrong. And I took all those steps that they tell you to take, and it didn't work. I took a long, 6-week technology break. I took a long vacation. I quit my job and became self-employed. That made it worse. Everyone who's self-employed already knew the answer to that one.
Yes.
And so that's when it became okay, I need to really figure out what's going wrong. I'm treating symptoms and I need to actually name this disease. And that's kind of where the research began.
And what did you start to find out? What did you start to discover?
I started looking through documents and things to try to figure out, when did we first start complaining about overwork? And I discovered that it began not long after the Industrial Revolution began, which was much earlier than I expected. That's when I was like, wait, back in the 19th century, they were talking about a loss of work-life balance, a loss of free time. And, just through examining history, then I started to say, well, was it different before the Industrial Revolution? And that's when I started reading just the most boring books you've ever read in your whole life. Just all these labor records from ancient Greece and Rome to discover that, human beings lived very differently up until the Industrial Revolution. And in a way, that was kind of depressing because it's been a long time. But in another way, we've been on the planet some 300,000 years and change, right? These are relatively recent changes. So there's a hopeful note of, we can change this back.
We'll get back to the interview after this quick break.
On The Breakout, Carrie and I celebrate big changes and small shifts. Only about 10% of us are really self-aware, but 90% of us think we are. Without self-awareness, change is tough. And if you don't know what box you're in, you can't break out of it. That's where we come in.
We are coaches and consultants that help you dig into change. We've spent our lives breaking through expectations, and we've devoted our careers to showing people how to do the same. We're here to help you demolish the story you've built around yourself to reveal the true you. Then the real fun begins.
And by fun, we mean helping you figure out your why and taking action to forge a fresh path. Connect with us at abrachigroup.com.
You took this, it sounds like a pivotal train ride.
Yeah, I love trains anyway. So I thought, well, okay, if I need to unplug, I'll take a train trip around the whole country, knowing that not every part of our train system is the Acela, the high-speed train on the East Coast, right? The train tracks go into places that are very remote, right? Not a lot of cell towers. So it was sort of forcing myself for 2 weeks to just be analog. It was awesome. You have the inevitable fear the first couple days, when you first pick up your phone or your tablet and there's no connection. And then your body just kind of starts to let go. And I got to tell you, by the time I was in the Acela again, headed back home to D.C., I was so reluctant to get out of the train. You have dinner in a dining car, right? You read books. They have a viewing car that's all windows. And you just sit there and read your book and do crossword puzzles and watch the country go by. So it was a pivotal experience for me.
What was different, Celeste? Because you mentioned that you did some of the things that we hack for efficiency, right? Take your downtime, go on the vacation, and you made it sound like that didn't quite help, but this one sounds like it did. What was the difference between this train ride and maybe some of the vacations or technology pauses you took before?
So a couple things. First of all, very few people actually take vacation. They are still checking their email. They're still checking social media. And I hate to tell you this, but our minds have not evolved fast enough for our mind to distinguish between checking social media and work. Your brain doesn't suddenly relax because you're looking at Facebook posts. Your brain thinks you're working. So we don't take breaks. The other thing is that we tend to have this feeling that vacations need to be highly planned. They need to be Instagrammable, right?
Yeah.
And so we turn it into a job to take vacations. So the vacations aren't a break for most people. Research shows that when people come back from vacations, they're often more stressed with higher cortisol levels than when they left. So that's number one, is that the train required me. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to worry about gas. I booked one of those little tiny rooms on the train, and I was unplugged by necessity. The other thing is that our brains can't actually relax while our electronics are in sight, even in peripheral vision. We have so much scientific evidence, reams of it, showing that even if your phone is muted, if it's within your peripheral vision, your brain is preparing for a notification to come in. It's on alert. So you have to find a way to get all of those electronics out of your peripheral vision, right? We don't do that on vacation.
No. In the workplace, as you well know, we talk about efficiency and productivity, and it's always connected with progress. And in your book, you talk about that's actually impeding our progress, those two words, efficiency and productivity.
First of all, do you know what's really efficient? Cancer. Do you know that if you go to the doctor and they say you have a growth, it's not a good thing?
Yeah.
Like, efficiency is just a method for doing things. It's value neutral. It's not a goal.
Such a good point.
It's sometimes the most efficient way to do things in terms of being creative. Human creativity requires the antithesis of efficiency. So efficient is fine for some things, and it's not for others. So just thinking that efficiency is good is, it's getting in the way.
Oh, I love that so much, Celeste. Like, just love, if I'm going to use that now. Cancer is really efficient too, because that's a very mic drop moment of, oh shit, that is efficient.
Yeah.
There are some really bad efficient things. And so it is a value neutral word, but we have made it such a good word in business to be incredibly efficient at all times. Ruthlessly efficient, people say sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's insane. Efficiency should never be your goal. The same, frankly, is true of productivity, because it matters what you're producing. And if what you're producing is of low quality, for example, if you try to multitask, because human brains can't multitask, cannot say that enough.
Yep.
If you try to multitask, both things that you're trying to do, the quality of them goes straight into the toilet, which means that you don't realize it, but you're making a bunch of mistakes. You're not being creative. You're not being innovative. You're not getting it done well. So that may feel efficient to you, and it may be productive, but what you're producing is crap.
Yeah.
So again, efficiency and productivity are well and good, but they're not a goal. They're a means to an end. And what matters more is the end. If you're trying to be creative, then efficiency is your enemy.
Yes. Yes. Well, that is my husband. He is an artist. And when they would put deadlines on his paintings, it does not go well. I was thinking, Kelly, as two women of German background that you and I are you triggered by hearing the efficiency is not the end goal? This is, we talk a lot about our German heritage, Celeste, and the shame-based that it is sometimes. How is this productive? How is this efficient? And I'm like, Kelly Gunther, who is always like, I had a productive day. So how are you doing, Kelly? Are you in a fetal position yet? You okay? What's happening?
No, not in a fetal position. I appreciate, and I think these messages are really important when it comes to us better understanding and being aware. Like what you're doing, Celeste, is creating awareness. I think that's why I really gravitated towards your TED Talk, because it was so thought-provoking in a way we haven't really challenged our thinking. And it goes against what a lot of companies are asking of their employees as well. So you're really putting something out there. People are like, oh my gosh, I do need to think differently.
Yeah, thanks. And that was another thing in terms of research on conversation, the aha moment when I realized that the advice we've been getting for 30 years is all based on nothing, no evidence at all. And, you know, there's the old joke about journalists being the one that ruin every party, right? Because we're the ones going, actually...
It's so true.
I know. The facts are...
Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Research shows.
Oh, yeah. We ruin everything. But, you know, it's the same thing there. It is like, I want people to interrogate the stuff they're doing. Like, don't just do it. Think about it for a moment. And this is one of the things, like, in terms of time, I'm sure people don't appreciate it, but I have to point out that people are not as busy as they think that they are. When our time perception, which is how accurately you can articulate where your time goes, is at a record low right now in general. If I were to ask both of you, how you spend your days and to estimate how much time do you spend on social media, how much time do you do this, statistics show that you would not be accurate. And that has all kinds of repercussions, because when you feel as though you are short on time, you become a worse person. Mm-hmm. Your amygdala takes over. You get panicked. Your amygdala is, your lizard brain, right? It responds to the world through fear and threat. You become less compassionate. You become impulsive, which means you start wasting a lot of time. Yeah. You make mistakes. And so it can become a very vicious cycle. And it's why one of the first things I tell people to do in that book is to keep track of their time. And when I say keep track of it, get a notebook and every half hour write down what you just did. And you can be brutally honest, because no one's going to see it but you. If you spent 2 hours scanning through Instagram or TikTok, then write it down. Because I was shocked how much time I spent on social media when I did that. I was shocked. And so we don't know where our time is going. People spend time when they're at work shopping for boots and booking plane tickets. It is true that work has bled into our home lives, but home has bled into the workplace. It's not equal. It's not even close to equal, but it is still true. So that's another thing, is that some of these are tough truths. Some of these are things where we need to really take a look at ourselves instead of reading those articles that say, here's the 8 things successful people do first thing in the morning, and then trying to recreate what works for somebody else. Right.
Waking up at 4 a.m. and journaling and working out. And by 6 o'clock, you're ready to start your day.
No, by 6 o'clock, you're ready to die.
Right, exactly. Could have used those 2 hours for sleep.
Yeah.
Some might say, myself included, that, this is a career I chose. If you're an entrepreneur, it's all about the hustle and the grind. This is just the nature of who I am. So what do you say to people who say those types of things?
I say it is totally understandable that you would believe that, because you've been brainwashed to believe it. I can give you lots of examples on how you can change your life, reclaim your personal life, and still get as much done and be as successful as you were before, if not more so. Because our brains don't work like that. First of all, you're not a knife. Why do we even say grind?
Right.
That is the dumbest thing ever. You're not a piece of metal, for God's sake. The human brain doesn't work that way. We know that the human brain has maybe 4 hours of focused attention in it every day. And we know that because some of the most successful people in history have had maybe 3 to 4 hours of productive time. Thomas Jefferson, Charles Dickens, Marie Curie, Henri Poincaré, Charles Darwin. If you examine the schedules of some of the most accomplished, innovative, world-changing people in history, you will discover that they did maybe 3 to 4 hours of work each day, because that's how much the brain can do. And when they got to the point where they were pushing themselves too far, they got up and walked away. Now, do we do that today? No, we're like, buckle down, jerk, quit complaining, go run a few laps and then come back and get back to it. Rise and grind, which again is a phrase I wish you would die in the pits of hell. Like, it is so anti-human. Our habits are anti-human.
She just is super honest. When I appreciate someone who's right between the eyes with the facts. One of my pet peeves is hearing people say, I'm so busy, because obviously, that's a reality of what it means to be human. But how much are you really busy?
Yeah, Kelly, you and I have tried really hard to not use that word busy.
Yes.
Because busy always makes it sound like you don't have a choice in it. It is done to you. I've been really trying hard on, does this really need to get done? Like asking myself that, is this the pressure I'm putting on myself? Or is this the pressure that is actual real pressure that this does need to get done? And like figuring out and listening to yourself, and not, again, the expectations of the corporation, which is antiquated. And how many podcasts have we had, Kelly, with so many people giving up everything for the job? And then they're like, and then I had a divorce. Then I had a health scare. Then I gave it up. Now I do this. So it's a lot of untangling of your own self and your own bullshit that you carry around these words.
We have agency in choosing how we want to spend our time. And so making better choices and being intentional about it, and then asking people to honor and respect that, starts with us being able to understand and respect ourselves. Do Nothing, as you mentioned, was published in 2020. We've had the pandemic, other events on a large scale that have shifted how people really think about work, Celeste. So are you noticing any types of changes, or do you feel like we're still sort of on that hamster wheel with no end in sight?
I am seeing a huge amount of changes among the workforce, especially among younger people, millennials and Gen Z, which makes sense because I'm Gen X. They're taking the brunt of even what is toxic for me, and it's worse for them. So I'm seeing generations who are not putting up with this crap and not ready to put up with it. I am not seeing changes in management and leadership. They are still managing workforces as though it's the 19th frickin' century. And so this whole backlash by executive leadership on remote work is so wrong-headed that it tells me that they are not listening to their workforce with any amount of respect. Their reaction has been to immediately poo-poo any complaints, to act as though I worked hard, so you can work hard too, to say that people are just complaining or don't understand or lazy, for God's sake. So yeah, the executive leadership is becoming afraid because they're afraid of change, and they're becoming defensive, which means they have to double down on the procedures and policies they've always used, as though to admit that change could be good would be to admit that they were wrong for all those years. A job is not a gift you're giving me. I don't need to be grateful to you for doing this job, right? You're not bestowing on me some magical gift. This is a transaction.
Yeah.
And you're paying me because my skills are needed at your business.
Yes.
And the sooner that executives and leaderships understand that, the better we will all be.
Mm-hmm. Which I think it's a long road to navigate, because as you read more stories about leadership wanting to bring people back 5 days a week.
Show me the evidence. I want the receipts.
Right?
Because all the evidence I've seen says that's a terrible idea. So what's your source?
Right.
Because I feel better, because that's the way I had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't control it, and I need to see them, right? So if I see them, I can ensure they're productive. I don't know what they're doing. This unknown that leaders have, they think that they're up to something. Like, what are they up to?
Yeah, think about this for a moment. Yeah. That is the mindset that you needed when you had an assembly line, putting wagons together in 1885, okay? That's when you really needed to watch people.
Yeah.
But if you think that your workers are sitting there coming into work each day thinking about how they can trick you into not working at all, you have a bigger problem than remote work.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well said.
Well said, Celeste. I want Celeste in all of my meetings now. So I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to have you talk to Celeste about your remote work policy. Thank you very much.
So you've done a tremendous amount of research, Celeste, and obviously very passionate about this topic. So how have your work habits changed as a result of the experiences you've had, the research that you've done? How has that translated to your actual life since writing the book?
So first of all, I don't force myself when my brain is resisting. When my brain's done, there's all kinds of work I can get done that doesn't require a lot of thinking. And I go and I do that, right? I'll take care of filing. I'll take care of whatever it is, do some boring reading of labor manuals. But I do not force myself to continue writing something if my brain can't do it. I also make sure I take a break every single hour. I turn down meetings constantly. I have slashed the number of meetings that I have probably by 80%. We all have too many meetings. And again, I've got the receipts. If you don't believe me, I can show you the research. So I just have more time. You know, during the pandemic, I took up a new hobby. I now make miniatures. It is very time consuming, and I'm never going to be selling them on Etsy or posting. I mean, I do post them on Instagram, but they're not perfect, right? Like they're not, I'm not improving my branding because I'm making these miniatures and getting super glue under my fingernails. I just do less work. I get the same amount done. actually. And people always think it's a gotcha question because they're like, you've written 2 other books since then, and you're doing this and you're doing that. And I'm like, yeah. And then I go and watch reruns of Parks and Rec and do a jigsaw puzzle. So yeah, my life is just better. I'm healthier. I'm happier. I'm a better friend. I'm a better mother. And frankly, the quality of my work is better. And I'm more compassionate. I bought what's supposed to be those little free libraries, but people were having trouble affording groceries, so I turned it into a pantry, and it's on my front lawn. And we fill it full of non-perishable food, and people in the neighborhood help out too, and I made the sign in 2 languages, and it gets emptied every day.
Wow.
That's what you have time for when you stop rising and grinding.
So, Celeste, our last question is, you have 1 minute with someone who wants to break out. What do you tell them?
I tell them schedule play time. We'll invest a lot into grief, sadness, complaining, ranting. We'll invest a lot. Get an estimate of how much time, if something terrible happens to you, how much time do you spend thinking about it, talking to friends about it, etc. And I want you to spend an equal amount of time playing, joyful, celebrating, throw a party again. Remember parties? They're awesome. Mm-hmm. Allow yourself to play. I throw 4 parties a year, and I want people to come in costume because adults never get to be silly.
Aww.
Be silly.
Be silly, schedule a play. Celeste, so grateful to you for taking the time to share with us your wisdom and insights and just to shift our thinking, I think more importantly than anything. So thank you to you for doing the research, for reading the labor manuals, and really applying it in a way that is truly meaningful for how we live our lives going forward.
It's my pleasure. Thanks. Yeah, journalists are always reading the boring stuff, so you don't have to.
Yeah, I love it. And bring in the receipts. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for getting everyone to really think twice about the words they use.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was the kick-ass leader of the do-nothing revolution, Celeste Headlee. And this is The Breakout. And remember, we've got an incredible contest for listeners who pre-order our book. Between August 14th and October 8th, if you post a podcast review and your pre-order receipt, you will be entered into the drawing. Please check out our show notes for more details. Thank you for being an amazing audience.
Kelly and I are in the business of breaking free, being brave, and living boldly. We're here to inspire you to be the badass you are meant to be. Coaching and consulting is kind of our thing, and we're really good at it. Connect with us at abrachigroup.com.
And don't forget to subscribe to The Breakout so you never miss a new episode. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And please leave us a review. Reviews help more people find the show, connect with us, and live a more authentic life. I'm Kelly Gunther.
And I'm Dr. Carrie Ulrich. See you next time.